All right, let's get into it. Today we are pulling back the curtain on a massive, hidden workforce that's operating inside pretty much every single company. Now, these workers, they don't have desks, they don't take coffee breaks, but they have the keys to absolutely everything.
So let me just ask you this. When you think about who has access to your company's crown jewels, your customer lists, your financial data, your secret sauce, who pops into your head? Your engineers? Maybe your top executives?
Well, it turns out the biggest risk might be coming from a place you can't even see.
Okay, get ready for this number. For every single human employee in an average company, there are at least 100 non-human machine identities. Let that sink in for a second. We're talking about 100 service accounts, API keys, and automated bots for every person on the payroll. This is that invisible workforce we mentioned, and honestly, the scale is just mind-boggling.
And this really brings us to our first big point. This isn't some small niche problem. We are talking about a full-blown crisis of scale, and it's completely changing the game for identity security.
And just look at how widespread this is. A whopping 89% of organizations are already trying to manage at least 25 machine identities for every single human one. So if you're sitting there thinking, oh, that's a big company problem, well, the data says something very different. The odds are this is happening inside your company right now.
But it gets even more extreme. For nearly half of all companies, 46%, that ratio blows past 100 to 1. It's like a population explosion is happening entirely behind the scenes, completely out of sight.
And depending on what industry you're in, the challenge just gets bigger and bigger. In a field like healthcare, for example, that number can balloon to an insane 500 machine identities for every single employee. Just try to imagine securing a digital workforce of that size.
And this is exactly why the research is so clear. The entire focus of security is shifting under our feet. For the last 20 years, we have been obsessed with securing human users. But for the next decade, the whole game is going to be about how we manage these non-human identities, or NHIs.
So here's the kicker. Despite this massive explosion in machine identities, only a tiny fraction of companies are actually ready for it. Just 12%. That's it, have figured out how to fully automate the management of these things from start to finish. Everybody else, well, they're basically trying to manage a tidal wave with a bucket.
And that management gap leads us right into our next big topic, what we're calling the visibility paradox. It's this dangerous disconnect between what leadership thinks is happening and what's actually happening on the ground. I mean, just look at this. On one side, you have 80% of top executives feeling confident that they're tracking all these old, unused machine accounts. But then you go ask the folks on the front lines, the actual practitioners, and that number plummets. They say it's really only happening about 50 to 70% of the time. That is a massive perception gap, and that's exactly where attackers love to hide.
So, why is this happening? Well, a few reasons. First, the reports that executives see often hide the messy details. Second, almost all of our security tools were built for people, not for bots and API keys. Third, there's a huge cultural gap between strategy and what's happening day to day. And maybe most importantly, nobody really owns this problem. It just falls through the cracks.
Okay, so we've laid out the problem, we've talked about the visibility gap, so what in the world do we do about it? Let's get into some concrete actions for how you actually secure these machines.
First things first, let's get the lingo right. In the tech world, a lot of these non-human identities are called workload identities. Microsoft puts it pretty simply. It's just an identity that lets an application or a service get access to resources. Think of it like a digital employee that works for your software.
So what makes these things so much riskier? Well, it boils down to three big things. One, you can't ask a piece of software to tap a button on its phone for multi-factor authentication. Two, these things often get created for a project and then just never get deleted. And three, their passwords and secrets have to be stored somewhere, which makes them a giant, juicy target for attackers.
And this leads to some very specific, very real threats. We're talking about things like leaked credentials, where somebody finds valid keys just sitting out in the open on a site like GitHub, or suspicious sign-ins where an identity starts acting weird, or even anomalous activity, like an app suddenly trying to change things in your network that it has no business touching.
Now, the good news is there's a clear playbook for when you spot a problem. Step 1, you have to inventory every single credential tied to that risky identity. Step 2, add a brand new secure one, something like a certificate. Step 3, get rid of all the old compromised credentials. And finally, Step 4, go and change any secrets or keys that the bad identity had access to. It's a straightforward 4-step process.
Okay, so with that tactical plan in mind, let's zoom back out for a second. Because really, fixing this requires more than just a technical playbook. It demands a totally new way of thinking about this new kind of workforce.
And you can already see this shift happening just by looking at where the money is going. Check out the top spending priorities for 2026. Right up there with huge topics like AI and zero trust, you've got non-human identity security. At 36%, it is a major budget item, which tells you that leadership is finally waking up to the risk.
And this new spending is driving a really fundamental change in thinking. We have to stop just asking, does this identity have the right access? That question is basically impossible to answer when you're talking about a 100-to-1 scale. The new question has to be, what's the blast radius if this thing gets compromised? It's a shift from just controlling access to actually managing risk.
When you boil it all down, it really comes to this. Our security models, our policies, our tools, they were all designed for humans. That basic assumption is now officially broken. The whole way we do security has to evolve. It needs to become identity agnostic, treating humans and machines with the same level of seriousness.
And as we start to wrap this up, this quote puts a really interesting spin on the whole conversation. We talk a ton about AI and automation, right? But what if the single biggest challenge isn't the technology at all? What if it's the shortage of skilled people who can actually build and run these incredibly complex systems? Which leaves us with one last question for you to think about. The workforce inside your company has already changed, fundamentally and permanently. The only question left is, has your security changed with it?